understand the concept of love.
So Chris is a turtle soul, which basically is irrelevant nowadays, because half of these souls give you all of the bloody effects. And he's also a bear, as you can see here. Starts with 115 rage, and he gets extra rage when attacked. The usual. Orochi badge, flame tone. His fates, pretty simple. There's no really expensive ones, as you can see. Well, this one is expensive, but a lot of people will be running this or something close to this in the future. And his gate partners, remember these are the API 12 versions. They might change, but they're the API 12 versions, not the 13, not the Orochi versions, so keep that in mind. So, to begin with, Chris has a lot of damage. That's something to keep in mind. This is the highest damage character in the game until Diamond. When Diamond comes, he becomes the highest damage character in the game. Maybe not per action, right? Maybe Chris still does more with his ult, I'm not sure, compared to Diamond's skill. But Diamond ends up having more action per turn because he has counters and such, which Chris doesn't have. But he's going to do an absolute shitload of damage. Basically, it's Mizuchi turn to 11, and on top of it he's a DPS, which means he's going to have higher crit power and higher crit base. So he increases his own ult damage, attack and defense. He gets a little bit of crit and crit power, and then he improves your flame fighters by 30%, so people like Psyche. He gets his small skill first round after resurrecting. Scorching Soul Flame, which is a soul burn. Basically, it's going to do damage and it's going to reduce rage. It's not going to be great against certain people because 200 rage is not a lot. So they might end up recovering more than that. There's certain characters that recover more than 200. This pairs well with Kusanagi, so he gets a double rage reduce and then it won't happen. He gets bonus attack and defense. When being rage reduced, he gets 100 rage back, which isn't enough. This is an issue. This is something to consider with Chris. Certain characters can rage reduce him and it will be a problem. Particularly if you go second, because each enemy affected by Scorched Soul Flame will restore 50 additional rage with this effect. Problem is, if you go second, you don't have any of this, so he won't be recovering a lot. Let's go with the first important part of his kit, the shield. The main thing to know is that this isn't a real shield, okay? It doesn't protect you from reflect, and it doesn't stop you from healing, like a normal shield has. If you have Liz in your team, for example, she can't be healed through the shield until the shield is gone, and she won't take reflect damage because of the shield. Chris doesn't have that, and that ends up becoming that one major weakness that puts him in that A minor, say with an asterisk tier, whatever you want to call it. Against normal hits, he is pretty tanky, as you can see, because he takes 22% maximum damage per hit in a single attack, and it will break after taking damage 1 to 4 times. So at the beginning of the fight, when you have 12 people, when you have 6 people on the field, on the enemy field, it can take 4 times. Then when it goes down, it'll go down to 3, then 2, then 1, etc. So when it's 1v1, it's going to be less. When it breaks, you take away your status, your CC and such, you heal, and then you get some defensive bonuses, which is pretty nice because it lasts until you get your shield back. He gets 1 revive, that's all he gets, even with gates and Smax and everything. Bugger returns to full HP and gets full rage after resin. He can't take reflect damage after resin, so he'll be free to just go off for the next 2 rounds after he dies for the first time, which is pretty good. And he gets tankier the later the resurrection happens. Now the issue with this is, like I've said before, if he ends up dying round 1, which is possible as we'll see, this bonus is going to be pretty small. The later he dies, the bigger this bonus gets, so the more damage and the more he lasts. And he has the interference skill, like reduce attack and reduce damage rate for 3 rounds, which is pretty good. We all know these are always useful, right? His skill attacks a column, increases own crit power, chance to silence the main target for 2 turns. Silence is pretty relevant nowadays. Many people won't be affected by it. It's easy to cleanse, you know. basically whenever you see silence, whenever you see stuns, stuff like that, those have lost a lot of value in the current meta. So he heals quite a bit, which is very nice, and he gets some rage back, which is also nice. And if he has his own shield, this gets doubled, which is when it's really good. 50% control free is nice, but only if you can get him more control free from some other source, because too many of the control effects nowadays, like say versus control, those are like guaranteed, so there's no chance for them to fail unless you have 100 or more. So if you can get him more control free is good. If not, you know, it's just some bonus that you have there. He stacks up to 3 times, 25% chance to skill, so it's going to end up at 75% and 45% life steal, which again is good, because his shield doesn't stop this. And if the target already has Soul Flame, you put another stack on him, which is when it starts getting really good, because if they have multiple stacks on them, then the rage reduction is great, right? And if you have a Flame Fighter, it reduces their damage, so reduces their flame power, so their ult damage really. Pretty good skill, covers all the bases. His Smax is obviously where the money is at, because he goes from having a normal ult attacking a column to hitting the entire enemy team, and it does double damage against the main target, what would have been the original column. Like every ult, he gets bonus stats, which, you know, that's to be expected. Won't restore the rage of enemies other than the main target, which is also great. The first ult is a critical hit and ignores block and rest, which again, that's insanely good. Deals extra damage equal to 200% of your own attack power to the column, which is great. Again, extra damage to the main target. As you can see, he has damage out the wazoo. On top of that, he gets Septic, like Chang and Mizuchi does, and this can be a lot of Septic because Chris does a lot of damage. Reduces rage by 500, fantastic, because that's a big amount. If you're affected by the Soul Scorching Flame, you consume it, you heal, you gain rage. He dispels the CC from one of our allies, which is always a great thing to see on a DPS. Any kind of utility in a DPS is fantastic. Trigger Scorching Soul Purgatory, which is a screen change like Cooler and K have. They do ice and fire, and he does like a purple field. And basically, if the stage is active, every time an enemy uses his ult, except from counterattacks, so this won't affect Shermie or Jeez or Diamond's counter, you reduce the rage gain speed by 20% for 1 turn, and it can be stacked. Ignores control free, cannot be dispelled, and give a stack of Scorching Soul Heart to all enemies on the first ult released each round. So this S-Max is dog's bollocks. It's one of the biggest changes to an S-Max. It's similar to Mizuchi, where you went single target to a full team. It does ridiculous damage. It cleanses CC from an ally. It has debuffs on the enemy. It has healing. It has rage gain, rage reduce. It does it all, right? It doesn't clean your clothes because it doesn't have access to your washing machine. Otherwise, it would as well. This is the reason why Chris gets run so much, because this is stupid damage. Now, like I said before, you can't compare this to China, Taiwan, etc., because we don't have the kind of whales in global server that you have in Taiwan or in China. So you're not going to be seeing 200 million damage ults or 150 million damage ults. So for comparison, in Taiwan, when Clark released, he was hitting 130 million damage. But that's because people had him trained up to like 3 million power, and we didn't. And most people in global didn't even have him past like 1.1 million. And the scaling works differently. So yeah. So Chris is basically, he shouldn't be, but he's your definition of a glass cannon, depending on what your server meta is like. So versus normal attacks, due to that shield he has, he can take quite a bit of punishment. The problem is, like I said before, that shield isn't a real shield, so it doesn't protect him from reflect. So when your enemy is running something like, say, Verson, Shermie and Hotaru, or Verson Hotaru, or Verson Shermie, or Shermie Hotaru Jeez, and Hotaru has Thorn Souls, or he has 2 characters with thorns runes on the front line. All of these things, which happen pretty commonly depending on your server. He can go to 1 HP after his Smax because he hits the entire enemy team. And then when Hotaru, Shermie, G's, whoever it is they have in there, counters, kills Chris. And this can happen round 1, making you use up that resurrect, and this bonus here is only going to be 20% at that point as well, so when he comes back it's not going to be as tanky. So what we see happen quite a bit now in places like China and Taiwan is that Chris will die round 1 and then Chris will die round 4. That's generally what happens, because round 1 ult gets countered, gets killed, loses his 1 resurrection, and then he becomes immune to reflect for 2 rounds where he can just go off as he wants, and then in round 4 that 2 rounds of immunity goes away and the same thing can happen. So ideally you'd want to deal enough damage to make it relevant when he dies in round 4. Basically you want him to just cripple the enemy before that. Based on all of his kit, I think depending on your server, Storm is not good on him, because like I said, if you have a lot of reflect and counters in arena, which a lot of servers do nowadays, he can get killed after his first ult, so Storm effect will get wasted. I think he is a perfect fit for Kusanagi Fightsoul if you have that. That Fightsoul has the issue that it's pretty limited in its scope, right? You need to have it on a non-Kusanagi fighter, so that means that in future, from the unreleased characters, all you have is Chris, Mai, and whenever Yori 14 gets released, because he's in Fates. Because Kyo 14 you won't be able to use it on, because he's a Kusanagi. But if you have that trained up, that's absolutely perfect for him, because it stacks really well with his with his soul burn, with his rage reduce and all that stuff. It works really well for him. Unyielding works on him like it works on any DPS, because, you know, outside of the heals when he's small, when you're low on life, and the CC removal when you're low on life, it also has the part where you gain ult damage, which obviously for someone who does as much damage as Chris already is great. So I would probably recommend running, if you have it, Kusanagi on him. If not, War God or Unyielding is also great. I think Wolf might run well on him, but most non-whales don't have Wolf at a high level because of the way Finger Fun have been milking it by making it recharge only and then making it hard to get the books and when it's not recharge only. So I think Wolf might be what work well on him because of the absorbed stats. But I think I'd probably run Kusanagi on him as number 1 if you have it. In terms of runes, he's very obviously a Wolves user, because with it, because he attacks the entire enemy team, and he has a round 1 ult, so all of the bonuses from that set of runes is going to apply, and it's going to make his damage go through the roof. So that's ideal for him. Not much to say about that. In terms of chips, I think you want to run, I can never remember if it's Scorpion or Python, the ones that give you HP drain on ults. Those are amazing for him, because you could get more damage, but he's already going to have nutty damage. There's the ones where when you take over a certain amount of damage, you gain damage and res. But I think because one of his main weaknesses is reflect, having him set up on Python or Scorpion or whatever the reflect one, whatever the HP drain ones are, I think that works really well because he does so much damage. So he's gonna recover a percentage of that, and that will allow him to offset some of the reflect damage. Yeah, so Chris is one of the best DPS in the game, and the reason he's rated just below A tier is because of what I said about those setups that can kill him round 1. Now for some people that's going to be irrelevant. In my server there's only 1 verse in top 10. There's only like 3 Hotarus in top 10 too, something like that. So there's nowhere near as big a worry about him getting killed round 1, except versus those very specific people, as compared in other servers where you have a lot of people who have verse and everybody has Hotaru. so then he's at a higher risk in those. So if you're in a server where you don't have a lot of that setup, then Chris is going to be easy A tier, no problem. Even when I'm saying he is A minus, like the difference is minimal, because you're going to have 3 rounds of him at full power at least, basically 3 or 4 ults out of him, and that's going to be a shit ton of damage. This character is going to make a lot of people very happy with the numbers he's going to put up. I generally look more at utility other than damage numbers, but even myself, I can't really say no to those kind of numbers, particularly because it looks like he's going to be coming during Carnival for Christmas, kind of like Mizuchi did last year, which means we're probably going to have a spend event for him, which is just amazing, right? Yeah, so would I recommend Chris? Absolutely. If you need a DPS, this man is going to do the job for you. Again, he, like for all of the characters that are coming up in all of this tier list, you should S-max them all. Okay? Okay, so in the end, for Chris, to resume, he's a turtle bear, ults round 1, has an interference skill, so he's good to replace anybody like Cooler or such if you have a backline like I do, or similar characters, because you will get to keep that buff. He has 1 revive, he has a damage limitation from his passive, but it doesn't work against reflection. He has soul burning and rage regeneration reduction as his main debuffs, so he's going to reduce rage and he can stack it, so it's pretty good. He has a weakness to reflecting counter teams, so that's something you need to take into account. Manage his ult order, make him ult last so other people can absorb counters, keep his ult priority low, turn off his red core if you have one on him. Basically just make sure that there's as little chance of him getting reflected and countered as possible to mitigate the chance of him getting killed round 1 until you can make someone like Yashiro round 1 or a similar character. Ideal runes would be Wolf. Wolf runes are the best fit for him as an AoE round 1 character. If you don't have a good set of wolves, killing would also work, but the effectiveness is going to be a lot lower. In terms of fight souls, I think Kusanagi would be the preferred fight soul for him. Unyielding or Wargord works as well with him. Not as good as Kusanagi, but you know, you make do. And Storm only if you're certain that he's not going to get killed round 1 after his first ult. So that's something you need to test and see, because a lot of them will get killed otherwise. And for chips, I'd personally recommend Scorpion chips for lifesteal, and since he has AoE damage, so it's easy for him to trigger that mark. His skill is multi-target as well. Otherwise, Python. I think that's pretty much all there is to say about him, so yeah, hopefully you have a good time with him.